Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Well, welcome all the visitors. It's so nice to see a full room. We'll begin with our fall accommodations and Superintendent Barton is going to help us out.
Yeah, like I said before, it's exciting to see so many of you that showed up today. This is something that the board made the decision to do many years ago, as they really have had goals to recognize our students for extraordinary work and efforts. And we just think so highly of what you've all accomplished here in terms of representing our school district and the Princeton Tigers at the state level. And we realize that you put in countless hours and dedication and hard work to get to where you were at. We know that we're an organization of student learning, but we look at your activities as an extension of what you do during the school day. And you're continually learning, and we are confident that the skills that you've acquired through your activities are going to propel you into just great things into the future. And we're just so thankful again for what you did. When we have our head coaches here, we always ask them, or a coach from the program, to do us the honor of calling your name up, and then you come up, get your certificate. And I know our board really does like to shake your hand. So we'll try and organize it. We'll start with soccer here. We have Coach Senny here. And Coach, congratulations on a strong year. I know that you've done a tremendous job. So Coach, if maybe you want to stand here, hand out. Sure. And if we have the competitor or the student athlete come up and get it, and then maybe we'll start over here and make our way around, and the board members will stand up and shake your hand. And then we don't have a lot of room, so you make your way out, and then maybe we'll bring up each team to come take a picture with the board at the end. So I believe we have soccer here tonight. We have swimming representatives and cross country as well, right? So we're good. So we'll start with soccer.
Okay. Again, I'm Jason Sunny. I'm the head coach for the soccer team. We had a solid season. Made it to the state tournament for the first time in program history. So pretty excited about that. We do have several of our representatives here. We do have several of our representatives here. Unfortunately, not all of them are here because many of them are playing additional sports, or as soon as they get their certificates, are going to be bailing back to get to other sports. So we have a lot of two-sport athletes, which is great. I'm going to read them all because they all should be recognized for their service or contribution to our school. Reese Struby, Preston Senny. He's a senior defenseman. Levi Senny, here he's in hockey. Colin Robideau, Graham Peterson is at basketball. Cole Olson, Gavin Ogilvy, Nathan Meitzel, senior defender. Declan Mai, Cody Lear is also at hockey. James Cole, senior defender. Ben Kelzer, senior goalie. Bo Jeffers, Matthew Hallberg, Noah Finesse, Timmy Dene, Peyton Dockin, senior midfielder. Dawson Dassau, junior sophomore midfielder. Then we have Ryland Danielson, Joe Carlson, Lucas Abrahamson, and then we also have my assistant coach here tonight, Eric Logan.
All right, so if you'd indulge us in coming up and taking a picture, that'd be great. And then I'll reminisce in that state game that it was in Monticello, right?
It was in Monticello, yes.
I still got a bone to pick with it. That's the first time I heard about the term a flop. And they did a flop on you.
Yeah, it was a good game. We played well.
Yes. Yeah, board members, we'd like to see you too.
Yeah.
So there you go. You're gonna come around.
Elsa, you wanna move a little more to your left? There you go. Get in between the Erics.
I think it'd be fine if we had our student school board representative there. You are part of the board. Thank you very much. As you may not have known that we have a student school board representative. All right. We all good? All right, very good. Thank you all. And now I'm wondering, if we bring up our cross country.
You guys need to take off the top, they want to hang out, at least in accommodations.
Thanks, coach. I tell you what, it's every year. It's every year we have representatives here from the cross country and track team. We have a very strong special program and really perennial state attendees. And we're just so proud of what you do. Coach, you have any words that you'd like to share
I
with
wish
the
she
group?
was here tonight, but I don't see her unfortunately, because he's one of those exceptional athletes that this is her 5th consecutive time down at the state meet, and you don't see that very often. She's undoubtedly the most decorated cross country or distance runner we have had at Princeton High School. And there's a saying that says that being an athlete is so much more than just playing the game, and she embodies that because the way she represents our sport, herself, our school, and our community is just exceptional. So, and I thank you for recognizing that excellence tonight, for not just Julia, but for all these, because it's really a neat, special thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you what, now is she a senior now?
She's a senior.
Yeah, so 5 times to the state tournament.
Every year she has.
Yeah, she didn't come out in 7th grade. I don't know why, but.
Right on. So,
And she finished. The best that, as far as I know, I didn't go way back in the early 60s, late 70s, but she finished 31st out of 157 this year. And that's the best finish I can find. The record that I happen to have.
and she'll be tying up the shoes probably for another track season.
Yeah.
And she's got a lot of success there as well.
Right.
So very good. Thank you, coach.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Representatives from our swimming team here. No, we don't. I think it's important for us to recognize Kelly Metzela. She has been a strong swimmer for us for years now. I believe that she's had multiple trips to the state tournament as well. So we'll get this to her on behalf of the school board. School board, we thank you for honoring our student athletes. And again, thank you for everything that you do representing the Princeton Tigers. So that concludes it. And now we'll go on with the rest of our meeting, and you're welcome to stay or you're welcome to go.
We'll move on to,
Big chair.
yeah,
I don't know that I spoke to you, but I have some other honorees.
you did.
I didn't. And because we're recognizing very special people in our school district for their accomplishments, I think it's important for us as a school district to recognize each of our school board members as it is the Minnesota School Board Recognition Month. And we have a certificate for each of you as well. So you can hang this on your fridge or frame it or, whatever you'd like to do. So I'd just like to, on behalf of our school district, Sue, there you go. Thank you very much. Board Chair, Kara Young. Vice Chair, thank you very much. Eric Meek, longstanding school board member, thank you very much. Eric Cranberg, thank you very much. Deb Alm is not present with us this evening. I believe she's doing some very important work as a grandmother, supporting her grandchild at hockey this evening. Melissa Lynch, our newest school board member, that's doing a fine job. And Don Bargo, thank you very much, Don, strong words. Okay. Now we're done.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll move on to our board showcase. So we have the Jolson family with us tonight, and so welcome. And if you just want to bustle up to that table and your whole family can come up, you don't have to send Carter alone unless he wants to.
You're good?
Oh.
Carter, we're, just so you know, we're just so happy to have you here, man.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Okay. Hello, my name is Carter Jolson, and I'm currently a sixth grader at Princeton Middle School. I very much enjoy watching and participating in athletics, and I very much enjoy going to school. In November 2019, I was diagnosed with a heart condition called cardiomyopathy. At this time, we did not know what the future would hold. Fast forward to November of 2021, I was put on the heart transplant waiting list and remained there until March 29th when I received a new heart. I am now getting back to the activities which I love to do. They are baseball, basketball, football, and lifting. Last summer, I heard from my brother Drew about how small our weight room was and how the equipment is old and out of date. That gave me the idea to upgrade the weight room with the wish I was granted from Make-A-Wish. I am now hoping my wish comes true so that all students have a better weight room experience and it can make a difference in our community. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I tell you what, it's, I think some of the board members may all have comments and, you know, I think we probably all have brought a tear to our eye just to hear your story. And how poised you were just standing up here, speaking, tells us a lot as well. And I know that all the interactions I've had with you, I certainly have always left there thinking, what a fine young man, just kind-hearted. And we just are so proud to have you a part of our school district and part of our Princeton Tiger family. And you know, I'm just curious, you know, you could have asked for anything in the world, probably, right? I mean, you had Make-A-Wish, you could be on your way to the Super Bowl this weekend. And that's not an exaggeration, is it? Probably,
No.
right? And you chose to make your wish to have a better weight room in
Yeah.
Princeton. Can you tell us why you did that?
Well, when my brother was coming home and saying like how the weights were rusty and how it was just kind of crammed in there and hard to work out. And after the Communities for Carter event and all the community did for me by raising money and just helping me during my time, I felt that it would just be a good opportunity as a thank you.
Awesome. You might need to run for office here. And let's hear from board members, thoughts, comments, questions.
Well, Carter, I want you to, on behalf of the district, I want to thank you for an amazing gift to our district, and it'll be a legacy that will be there a really long time, and that's super cool. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to thank you for sharing your story with us yourself. That's quite brave getting up there. You did an excellent job. So, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So Carter, just so you know, this has been a partnership with lots of people, working together to make your dream a reality and your wish a reality. But you started it all. This all is happening because of you, right? I don't think that we would be talking about a weight room if it wasn't for Carter Jolson. And the board, we have some planning and things that we're in the middle of doing. The school board and Make-A-Wish and other entities are working together to pull this off. And if everything goes perfectly, we might have a brand new weight room for all of our students to be very proud of as early as this summer. That's our hope and that's our goal. And if you're okay with it, we hope to be able to tell your story along the way and certainly have you be a big part of that. whether we do a ribbon cutting or whatever it might be, to kind of open the weight room for the first time. We want this to be as much about you as anybody.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Mom and dad have any thoughts for us? You gotta be super
Like
proud,
always,
huh?
he says it all.
Wow, you raised a good one, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
No.
Wow.
We tried to talk him into the Super Bowl, but
Yeah, you'd be there right now, probably.
Somebody is going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I bet. Well, thank you so much, and yeah, we'll be in touch, right? Because we're getting the ball rolling, and things are gonna happen quick.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. All right.
Right, we'll move on to roll call. Let the record show that all board members are present, with the exception of Deb Alm. There are no citizens' comments. And so we'll move on to board member committee reports, and we'll start with Eric Strandberg.
A couple weeks ago, I had a parking lot meeting for long range planning, talking about parking lots at the high school and the student services building. We also had another kind of revised blueprint of that parking lot, and I think it's gonna be really functional. It's gonna be really nice to ease the traffic flow there. We had activities meeting. There's right now, middle school is really struggling to find some coaches. They need, I think the softball coaching position has been filled, but I know they need baseball coaches right now. Yeah, that's kind of an ongoing thing. Football sounds like it's gonna be a problem in the fall already, finding coaches. And then right before this, we had a finance meeting committee. That's it.
All right, John?
I had a couple long range planning committees. I had coffee with Ben. Been to a couple different activities. We also had our Beck's home tournament this last weekend. It was the biggest one that we put on. Both the middle school and the high school. We had 30 teams for high school and 36 for middle school. And now we're preparing for the other sport with archery this weekend with over 900 coming in for that. So some big tournaments.
Jed?
Yeah, I had agenda planning last week, finance, today. And just, if anybody's not heard of the podcast with Ben Martin, you gotta listen to it because it's very, very good. So check it out. Anywhere you get your podcast, you can get it.
All right. Is it linked to the Tiger Times or?
I think that when we sent our Tiger Times out last Friday, we did make reference to it to look for it. But we can probably get it out as well, yeah. And just fair warning, I'll probably recommend that they have some school board members on as featured guests of the podcast, if you're ever would be interested in something like that.
I had agenda planning this week and last week, and that was all. Mr.
I had the long range planning as well with Eric and Don regarding this high school parking lot. And
Melissa?
And I had my first meeting with the Run River Co-op, and I was somehow nominated to be a treasurer and clerk of that, so I am that now. Then there's no backup on that one. And then I've been to a ton of events since then, but I also wanted to share the one that I had no idea was an event until we randomly went, and there were only a couple of us there. The swim team, the boys swim team, did a water polo match just between, though they split the team in half, and then to raise money for the coach bus for this upcoming meet they have. They've raised so much money, whichever team raises money, it earns clothes that the coach just has, and then the other team has to wear those clothes. So the guys are in sweatshirts or dresses or robes. It was hilarious. And they're just playing water polo in the just in the pool at the high school, and so it's a free event, and I was like, I have to spread the word of that because it was very entertaining, so, yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, and now my computer.
Their student school board member, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, so for student council specifically, the main focus this week is snow days, because on Friday we have the snow days dance and we have the pep fest where the basketball teams, both the boys and the girls, are gonna have like a little relay against each other, and then we'll like recognize different students for things. And this week there's been the snow days dress up days, so like today was hero versus villain day, and then tomorrow was like dress like a teacher day, and there's just different little fun days for that. For the CC4L committee, we've been focusing on Black History Month because February is Black History Month, and each week we highlight a different person in Black history, and on the announcements and in the daily bulletin, there's information about that person. And yeah, there's been a lot for activities, like I know tonight, I believe there's the last regular gymnastics meet, and then last night there was a choir concert, next week there's a band concert, and then one act is finished up, and there's lots of sport stuff going on.
Okay. Thank you, Lynn. Superintendent's report.
Well, I think a lot of my time recently has just been spent getting out, listening to people. Certainly you're aware of the Soup with the Soup, going to the different sites, was having the student advisory groups, met with them at the middle school and the high school. Tomorrow is a coffee and conversation with the community. That will be actually in here tomorrow at 2:30 to 3:30. Sometimes I get a lot of people, sometimes I only get a couple, right? I've spoken to some of the board members to let you know that you're always welcome to attend. We just always need to make sure we don't have more than 3 people attend. But that's something that, if you're interested in joining me, just let me know. And, today was a great event at the Chamber of Commerce. We presented on our career academies, and there was a nice audience of about 30 people from the businesses, and Heather Sorensen did just a strong job getting out and sharing that. And I spoke of quite a bit as well, and I just think there's a lot of excitement and interest, and I think people are really excited, well, happy with the work that we're doing there. So that's something that we need to stay the course on. We're going to talk a lot tonight about budget and buildings and those kinds of things, but I would say that that's taking up quite a bit of time recently as well. And I'll end my remarks because we'll be spending a lot of time on those things in the agenda. So unless you have further questions.
I did have one question. If we're gonna miss our committee, like if we're gonna miss long range planning or whatever, can we ask another board member to sit in, or are those set? You know the answer to that?
Well, I would say that the board has a lot of authority to do what the board wants to do. And if the board made that as something that they would like to do, I don't think there's any problem with that. Nothing that we talk about in these committee meetings is something that we don't want all the other board members to know. It's just, it's easier to do committee work when you have a smaller number of people to represent the whole. So I think that would be fine. For example, we had a finance committee tonight. One member wasn't able to attend. There was one opening, and we just know, so for us to not violate any open meeting laws, we can only have 3 people attend those meetings.
Well, I was just thinking as if Deb wanted to ask, can't be there tonight, would you like to join, that kind of thing, or long range planning or whatever, so that sometimes it ends up that there's just one person there, and it would be nice to have a second board meeting if that fourth person, if that's possible.
Yep, I think so.
Okay.
And I would also say, as long as you brought up the idea of committees, I think the board should know that we are looking at some options to bring our public engagement committee to be part of our rotation. Historically, we've done one policy, one finance, but there are months that we know every year it's a slow month for finance. Or it's a slow month for policy, or maybe we're ahead on our policies. So what I'm going to propose, and I'm asking Michelle and Emily to do, is to mock up a schedule, to modify our schedule so that we add our long range planning into that rotation of meeting before board meetings.
Public
Or, yeah, I'm sorry, public engagement. I think with the long range planning piece, just because of the nature of that work, I would propose that is an as needed committee based upon what's happening at the time. For example, we are looking at some additional space options in the district, right, to accommodate some early childhood needs that we have. You know, I anticipate me needing to ask the long range planning group to get together 3 or 4 times in the next couple of months, if we need to tour spaces or whatever needs to be done. So we'll send you some information on that proposal.
And then I would encourage board members, if you can't attend, to ask, just shoot a text out or someone to see if someone's available to replace. We don't have to go crazy, but wonder, yeah. So that at least there's more than one board member there. Okay. We'll move on to approve the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented. So moved. Motion made by Don, second by Chad. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are gonna act on previous board minutes from 1/17. I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Motion made by Eric Minks. Is there a second? Second by Melissa. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Don, second by Eric Strandberg. Is there any discussion?
Chair, I just would like to acknowledge that we do have our cultural liaison in the audience, Bear Paw, and she was so kind to come and be present. And as part of the consent agenda, there is a document that she worked on. Bear Paw, do you have any comments that you'd like to share with the board on what they're going to approve?
So what it is a compliance or non-compliance within the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee. And so, as a part of, from the state of Minnesota State aid grant, the Parent Advisory Committee, we have Steph Tatum here, who is the co-chair. So she has to represent that. I cannot, as a cultural liaison. And so she just wanted to come up and let you know what the vote was. And then I believe you have the documents to go ahead and sign that. And then I'll need a copy of that so I can send it back to the state of Minnesota. So.
Steph Tatum, and I'm the co-chair for the American Indian Education Program. Parent Committee, sorry, it's American Indian Parent Committee. Do you want me to give them the document?
No, they already have the documents. You can just let them know your vote.
Yeah, and my vote is concurrence.
So they voted concurrence this year.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
She's doing a great job.
I wonder, Bear Paw, if maybe at a future meeting, we could ask you to be a board showcase like we've done in the past, so we can talk at a later date on that.
Absolutely. Would love to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
All right, there's a motion on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to the information part of the meeting and we'll start with pay equity.
Yeah, I can speak to it. Our HR director, Sani, typically would speak to this. This is the requirement that we must do every couple of years to be, every 3 years to be in compliance. And We use a process, through what's called the state match, where we need to take job descriptions that we have in our school district for every job. And then we need to match that to the state of Minnesota, all the jobs that they have, literally hundreds, if not thousands of jobs, match it. And they assign points, if you will, in terms of the level of responsibility that that role has. And then there's calculations and formulas that you can likely see in the document that you have. And they run a test to make sure that you're in compliance and you're not out of line in terms of paying one gender more than another in terms of your workforce. For example, it's a safeguard to make sure that an organization does not pay a male more than a female or vice versa. And we're thankful to say that we passed that and we are in compliance and we need to file that. And it's just something that, as a requirement of filing that, we ask the board to approve that.
And that will be on the next agenda approval, right?
That's what I believe I asked for, yeah.
Okay. All right, and any other questions on that? We'll move on to the first reading of policy, and Dawn, do you have any comments there?
The changes are noted in, you guys' sheet. 534, policy looked at in regards to, the Attorney General for the state of Minnesota ruling. So we just wanted to make sure we were compliant with that. Otherwise, everything is pretty standard that's in here, so.
Any other questions for Dawn? Okay, we will move on to the school calendar. I think we've seen this once before as well. And
Yeah, you've seen it actually quite a few times, and we've had it vetted through multiple locations. You know, I think we do need to get this out because families are already trying to plan vacations and things for the following year. I want the board to be aware that we are already pretty far along on creating the following year's calendar. And we hope to actually bring that to you prior to the end of this year, so that we're gonna be 2 calendars out for people. You know, some of this stuff is always subject to change. You know, probably, to be honest, the most controversial thing in the calendar has been working with each of the sites in terms of when they think is most appropriate to have conferences. And, you know, I really try and let the sites wrestle with what's the best, what do they think is the best, and you know, there's 1 or 2 sites that still haven't found their sweet spot, what they think is the ideal. And of course, there's varying opinions on that as well, so. This is what we have, and I believe this is, I don't even have my computer in front of me, so, because this is in the information component,
Yes.
right? So this would be, next month, we need to get this thing voted on and approved and get it out.
all right, and then we will move on to board goals for 2023. And I was just looking for that. Ben did send us that document that had the one that we did. But I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, I can send it.
So, you know, basically, you know, we've started the practice as a board to set goals for ourselves on how we operate and how we can improve our work together as a board. And we are a little late in adopting new goals. The previous set of goals that we had was basically all centered around the theme of board communication. And, you know, there was different, like an A, B, and a C and the direction we were gonna go there. So, you know, it's time that we create some new goals and some ideas. I would say that we're not gonna be able to finalize this tonight. What I would suggest is that we brainstorm a little bit, take a little bit of time to brainstorm with the idea that we come back to our next meeting with something somewhat fleshed out that we can take serious to consider voting on, or at least move it on to the next meeting to vote on.
The one that's in there, increasing, the board's, engagement in the community. I know that there are a couple of board members that are on, public engagement that, are interested in keeping that goal and then having public engagement, do some brainstorming on some action steps to make that happen. I think we did some of that, on the website and in the Tiger Times, where we did talk about budget and you did talk about that audit and that kind of thing, but maybe people can come up with some other ideas for that goal number one.
Yeah, I think that'd be great to keep it. To me, it's just us being able to wrestle with, the superintendent's role in terms of communicating on behalf of the board versus the board's engagement without the superintendent. Because I think that I could make a very strong argument of all of the different things that the superintendent is doing on behalf of the board in terms of communication out in dozens of different ways, right? But as I've talked to board members, I'm thinking that there's a desire to have the actual board more engaged and board members more engaged with the public. And I think that's great. I think that we will just have to continue to keep our eye on what we've learned over the years in terms of best practices and governance. And not getting so engaged that you are taking on more of a managerial role and just making sure that those engagements stay at a very high level, big picture as it relates to board work, policy, finance, those kinds of things.
I don't know if visibility is another word that can go in there. I mean, just the committee reports and how the board is visible in a lot of ways. And so I don't know if there's a way to add that as a piece of this engagement in the community, but I think it's also a good thing for people to recognize that board is not just sitting at the table. Maybe. I don't know how we do that, exactly how, I mean, obviously in the reports, more and more of that, people are talking about the things they're attending. I think that's fabulous. So.
Yeah, I think that it would be something that if the board had that as a goal, I think that could be that the action plan be delegated to our public engagement committee of board members to come up with what are the strategies that we'll utilize.
I also, I want to hug the floor here. I think there should be some kind of facilities goal.
Or like an additional facility.
Or just in, we're talking about a CTE wing, and we're talking about community ed needs and, those kinds of things. I think that should be, have some direction as far as the goal.
Okay. Again, we're brainstorming, so there's no.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I have been thinking where it'd be beneficial maybe to have like a board tab somewhere. I mean, I just wrote some notes down as well, but maybe just having a place where we could put some updates, detailed update update it quarterly of what we're doing or what we're working on, just quarterly. So nothing that it would take a huge amount of extra effort or anything. I think it's just for a place that people want to see, okay, what are they, visit it once in a while, right? What are they working? What are you working on? Another thing I was thinking of is, you know, how our agenda, we kind of every year, at the same time of the year, our agendas are kind of, well, they're not always standard, but maybe just showing the public, like, what are those agendas look like in advance, so maybe they'll want to attend, one of the meetings that might strike, you know, a topic that they're interested in. So just maybe showing the agendas a little far in advance, just so they can plan accordingly. That would be
Along with that same thing, maybe advertising like our showcases a bit more somehow within the, you know, who's gonna be coming up, because I think that a lot of people would benefit from seeing, you know, like the career academies presentation Heather did, or Source did, or, you know, Carter's story here, that was really special.
So just as a observation here. We're starting to come up with strategies to meet some of the goals a little bit already, which is a good thing. But if, you know, that's something that the long range planning committee should be able to take into consideration, say, okay, to increase our engagement, these are some things that we're gonna do. And the discussion's good, but I want us to keep on the idea of the goal, you know, what are our goals, and then once the goals are established, then we decide, well, how are we gonna meet that goal?
Well, I think, you know, a lot of us, when we were at the MSBA state conference, you know, we were looking a lot at the CTE, different career paths, you know, way to get these students going different directions than that meets the students' needs versus everyone as a whole, because each kid is different. And I think we gotta recognize that as well, because you can't put them in a circle. Every kid is not the same. And so I think something around, I don't know how we would do that one, but you know, kind of looking at what are our student needs and family needs.
No, that's. The career academies is one thing, right? But then when you talk, what are the students' needs and the family needs? That's everything, right?
Could be, yeah. I mean, we could go many different directions with that.
Okay, so right now, big picture wise, I mean, I put in increased school board engagement. I put down maybe possible facilities goal. I put down a possible goal related to career academies.
Would it be crazy to maybe throw out the idea of possibly coming up with some sort of operating referendum to bring to the public at some point? Is that not like a goal that's a set thing, just with COVID funding leaving and all that?
Yeah.
I feel like we need to have some sort of plan for that.
But I think that, you know, now you're talking about finance, and as we go through the budget tonight,
No,
we're not gonna go through it tonight. But I think next meeting, we're gonna go into it in more detail. And I think our finance committee would tell you that what we're preliminarily working on, looking at is, you know, there's a strong possibility that we may need to have an operating referendum. But that's, again,
It's already on the goal it's being worked on.
I don't know if that's really a goal.
The goal would be like continuing to fund the things we were using with the
Yeah.
COVID funds, I guess. would be the-
Try to avoid that at all costs, I guess. Yeah. I think a goal would be to try to figure out how to successfully avoid having to have an operating referendum.
that's been our goal every year, because we're one of the schools that doesn't have an operating referendum. So we have no choice but to, you know, balance the books, which, you know, ultimately means that we focus on the needs. There's not a whole lot, there's not a bunch of wants and fluff. You know. So some of those exciting programs that you might hear about that say, why can't we have it here? And you say, well, geez, you know, that district might have an operating referendum that they get $10 more million a year than us or whatever.
I attended at the state conference session on engaging the school board rep or roles that the school board rep, this from the high school, the student council rep has with the board, and I'd like to have a goal to try to improve that engagement and get that student more involved, recognize that student more for their service to the board. And so I don't want to go in a lot of details with that, but I think that could be a goal for this year, that Winnie works with Chad and I or whatever, and maybe we do something with student council to try to boost that that role.
I think it'd be nice if, remember back when I first got on, I'm sure you guys all remember, that government class students would get credit for coming to meetings. That'd be, it's not necessarily a school board goal, but it'd be kind of a nice thing to have as part of our curriculum in the government class, them attending a school board or a city council meeting.
I do remember in college gov that I took first try, I remember Sorensen mentioned something about that, and she asked like how many people had been to a school board meeting, and like hardly anybody had. So like when she was trying to explain it, it was kind of harder than like understanding it if you have been.
We used to have to attend like 2 or 3 meetings a semester.
Oh.
We had semesters at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 meetings, and you had to come up and bring your notebook, and the school board members to be council member would have to sign it. It was a good way to get students engaged in government and possibly even talking about government in their households.
I wonder if COVID kind of put an end to that.
It seemed like it stopped before that.
Oh, okay.
Well, Howard was still on board and we were still signing up.
Right,
We're
right.
still signing up their sheets,
Mhm.
but
That's not necessarily a
It's nice
school
to-
board goal, but I think it's something that would be nice to. That would probably help with our outreach right there, having students come to the meetings. And then maybe they come home, they go home and eat dinner and talk about what happened at the school board meeting with mom and dad or grandma, grandpa, or whatever.
And I think the thing that you said about like working with student council, I like that idea too, because I've noticed like the last couple of years with student council, we haven't like done very much like community stuff. So I feel like it would be good on like both ends.
Mhm. Good.
I was gonna say, I had one more where, and I don't know if this would be, I mean, this, I was just kind of writing things down, but. Providing additional or opportunities for the public to provide input to the board, and I'm not saying like getting into the weeds or anything, because I definitely don't want to do that, but just like, just like high level, and we can filter whatever we want to do. But maybe it'd be a good way to, I don't know, respond to the community if there is, respond to them, or like I said, I'm not talking about getting into the weeds, so that I know we've gone away from that. But just, I don't know, just a way to interact with the public, I guess, is just what I was thinking out loud. So I don't know how we would do that, but.
Well, I think that the public engagement committee would try and find ways for that to happen and come up with some strategies to do that. One example, there's some things that we're already doing that, or things that we will be doing that are pretty easy. If there's 1 or 2 people that come to this coffee and conversation tomorrow, as you're engaging with the community. You just never know what you're gonna get.
All right, any more discussion there on board goals? Any more ideas?
I think I have 5 big themes down. I would press the board to maybe narrow it to 3 or 4. And try and stick with things that you consider to be board work. Which, you know, I think most things that were referenced there is in that realm.
So do you want to put like a rough draft together for the
Sure.
next meeting? Is that the next step to go here? Kind of put those thoughts together and then we go from there or?
Well, I wonder if maybe that I can work with the board chair and vice chair to rough something out, maybe when we
Okay.
meet
Yeah.
for our agenda planning, we can pull something
Mhm.
together.
Okay, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate. What, is there an issue? I mean, are we not communicating with the? Do we not have enough engagement with the public? I mean, meetings are open, no one ever shows up, so.
It's the biggest crowd we've had in a long
I
time.
know, great, one has to be here. No. I mean, what,
Yeah.
I understand 100% what you're saying.
we can sit and talk about this all night, but what are we actually gonna do once we leave here? I mean, what? I mean, is there? Do we have a problem with not reaching the community? Because I think things are going pretty good, pretty well recently.
We had a hugely failed referendum,
Okay,
so was that a message to us that we weren't engaging in ways that they would know more about the district and then make a better decision about things like that, or I guess better isn't necessarily the right word. but
Or was it
An informed decision, maybe?
huge tax increase in Mille Lacs County in the city of Princeton? I'm guessing it was more the huge increase of the taxes versus, I mean, I don't think we could have done anything else to get the word out, so.
We did have a,
Maybe we did too much. Maybe we should have kept it a secret, I guess.
I think you were meeting here, Barry. We had someone present,
Citizen comment.
yeah, for the citizen comments, and they said the word was not out. And it was
Yeah,
not on their-
I was here. I don't believe
Okay.
that, but
Okay.
they probably just threw their mail away.
You know, I think we need to be showcasing each of our schools more and our students more. We do a lot on Facebook, but there's a lot of people that aren't on Facebook. You know, we say media, but there's other outlets besides, you know, we do so much, you know, through Facebook, but that's not, you know, we don't reach a lot of people either, except they don't like our page or share it. You know, we're just getting to that same group. You're not reaching the entire district. And I think we gotta make sure we get more out
Sure.
to all over our district.
are you gonna go knock on everybody's door? I mean, that's a. I'm not saying I don't agree with the direction here, but. When you say we're not reaching enough people, man, I don't really know. How much more we can actually do,
Well, I think we
other
gotta
than
go,
stand in the town square and say, and, you know. I'm just being facetious, but I mean, what, the clock tower, and say, you know, start. Come here and talk to me about the school, you know, what more can we do?
I think we need some mailers. I know Community Ed just did a.
Mailers
Mailer.
cost money.
They do, but at the same time, we gotta reach our base.
I think having the public engagement committee is gonna help address that too, right? Like, what else can we do? That's a good way to start that. I feel like I mean, I'm a parent and a community member, and I'm fairly involved in the community as a community member before now even, but
We all are.
well, right, I'm not saying that you're not, I'm just saying that
Use it.
as someone, or not someone, but as someone, like, people don't know what the school board does, so even just that they really, just that your general person doesn't really know, and maybe they don't need to know, but I think that, you know, it's important you know, having like Eric was saying, or, sorry, Eric Stramberg was saying earlier, you know, with this, getting some more students involved, even something like that would not necessarily get the word out on a project more, but just so people know more what we're doing, as opposed to just sitting up here going, you know, yes, no.
Right, I
But
feel
what
like,
does it? What does it accomplish? I mean,
What does the community knowing what we're doing accomplish?
well, no. I guess what I'm saying is that we do a lot already. I mean, we never have anybody here. And so, I mean, I go back, we stood in schools at open houses and handed out flyers for the referendum. And I mean, there was one thing that we did, we had open community meetings, we had all kinds of stuff. And like, when you say we had a referendum that failed miserably, yes, we did. But I agree with Eric, there was some other outside forces that caused that, not because it was lack of effort on our part or our administration's part. So.
I don't think there's a necessary lack of effort, just more ideas. It never hurts to kind of change the way, you know, change up the way we, not the way we do things, but maybe the way we present information, or, you know, and maybe it's not for a specific thing, but I think that, you know, maybe the average person can't come to a meeting. I mean, having them on YouTube and stuff is great too, so. But I think that if the community knows more of like what we're actually doing, I think that would help immensely to know that, you know, even just seeing us out in the community, we're all out in the community. So I mean, that right there is a huge, that doesn't, you know, that right there helps us, I think, seeing us out and doing stuff.
Brian, you got something?
Yeah, just two things. One is I agree with Eric. As a parent, I really appreciated the board members at the open houses. And maybe to do that when it's not a referendum on the table, just to make yourself, you know, available for questions. I appreciated, and at that time, I had two kids in two different schools. I just appreciated that greatly. The second piece is on Don's comment. Since I've got in my role since July 1st, I continue to have literally hundreds of emails and people that have asked for a printed catalog. That was the biggest thing that people enjoy getting. Back in the day, we did have a superintendent message, a part of that catalog. We did have school board updates and summaries and things like that. We are going to be bringing that forward in April. We are going to be sending that to print in March. If we want to do some sort of collaboration and it works well. Right now, the plan going forward is that we do that in our spring, and then fall and winter will be online. But if it is something that we could partner with the school board or the district office on and summarize, I wasn't ever a big fan of, you know, the catalog being one way and then school board updates being the other way, but we can do that. But it's just an idea, and we'd have to make that decision fairly soon, because we were told originally that the turnaround on that catalog is about 6 weeks, and I just got word this week that's more like 8 weeks. So we are really having a hard deadline of our summer proposals by February 28th to get that going. But if that's something that the board wants to use, or the superintendent wants to use to help with some communications, summary, year highlights or anything like that, we certainly could do that.
And that goes out to every household in the district.
15,000 homes.
So there we go. That's a great spot to start.
Yeah.
And then the next month after it gets out, we'll see if there's any more people here at our meeting.
so off the top of your head, how much is that gonna cost to send 15,000 reads out?
It's about $8,600. It was, you know, the cost of postage has gone up. I would say it's gonna be, we have a budget for about 9,000. We are reaching out to businesses and advertisers to help offset that cost a little bit. I think I have 4 or 5 so far that have committed to that. But we're gonna also, once we know how many pages we need, we're gonna publicize that more in that partnership for advertisers.
Yeah, you know, I think that this would, if the board wants this to be a goal, then I would encourage the long range planning, not the public engagement committee to create that action plan for that to occur. It's been my experience in my 5 years here that when we do things and invite people to come, board meetings, whatever, we rarely get anybody to come.
Only time they come is when there's an issue.
And you know what, and that's where the board, I think that many of our colleague boards across the state that have their boardrooms full of people screaming at them because they're not happy with what's going on, I think they welcome not having a lot of people at their board meetings. It's just it's an interesting thing for us to talk about, because I hear from some board members that you want to have more engagement in your role as a board member with your constituents in the community, and I think that's admirable. We just need to figure out, you know, again, like, what is the purpose? What are we trying to accomplish? And then how do you do that?
Is there any way to do like a survey from the community on how they think the board is doing? And, you know, have different areas to see if they think improvement needs to happen there, or, you know.
Well, we could send something out. I mean, we sent out a, what time do you want your kids to go to school survey, and we had 400 people respond out of 8,000 or whatever. So, and that was something that actually affected everyone. You know, how many are we gonna get it back if we send this survey out? 4? People just don't really care. I mean, honestly, people really don't care. It's bad to say that, but I think that that's the truth.
I think people do care. I think that the average person doesn't have the time to sit maybe through a whole meeting, but maybe they just want to know, you know, and they could look at the minutes, they could look at, you know, the agenda, but it doesn't, I don't think that necessarily being more visible in the community is gonna mean more people are gonna be here. We don't really, if they're just gonna show up to have issues, you know, obviously we want to know the issues, but that doesn't necessarily mean, better communication doesn't necessarily mean more people are going to sit through our meetings. I mean, just realistically,
Right.
have people that, you know, really care what's going on, have kids, and it's a lot of work, as we all know. So I don't think that the lack of people here necessarily means that either way, we need more, or we're doing fantastic. I don't think that that's maybe the wrong way, in my opinion, to gauge that. So.
If I recall the conversation a year ago, when we put this goal in place, it was kind of similar. Having a hard time coming up with where to go from here. So I think it is good for the public engagement, maybe to take a look at it. Facilities goal, a student rep goal, that kind of thing. I mean, Chad and I can work on that, and then we can come back and, I mean, that goal number 1 was last year's, and that's not what people want, that's fine.
Well, this was a starting point, just to have some conversation. I think we've had some really good conversation, and it's important for everybody to share their thoughts on it. And at the end of the day, we want to just come up with, I would say, 3 goals that we picked, then those are the board's goals. So, I mean, that, and I don't want this to come out as a disrespectful, but it is the way it is. If these are the board's goals, the board needs to be committed to do the work to accomplish the goals. Right? We're talking about the board's work. Okay.
I was like to say, I really like the student involvement. idea, because that goes, I think that meets all of our, you know, us communication and everything there, just having more kids involved.
All right. Anything else? Let's move on to the parking lot project.
We're moving forward with the parking lot project. The biggest part of the project is gonna be the high school. And we're focusing on that main front parking lot. It's going to be redesigned for safety purposes and traffic flow. And if we have been in that parking lot, you know, some areas are literally disintegrating, so we needed to have a new parking lot. So we're gonna take advantage of the redesign. We have had our long range planning committee involved in some of those meetings that we've had with the architects and the engineers. The only thing that is different that the board needs to be aware of is we had 3 projects tied into that. We had the high school project, we had the student services building, and then we also had a new parking lot that would be near the middle school ball fields. And as you're aware, we're still in some uncertainty in negotiating times with a developer to potentially purchase that property and put in a housing development. After lots of discussion, we felt like it would be foolish for us to plop a parking lot in there without knowing the detailed plans of the possible development. So that is gonna be put on hold. The dollars that the board has voted on to secure, called the abatement bond, we have up to 3 years to utilize those funds. So we're recommending that we put a pause on that one and we're moving forward with the other 2.
I don't know if I agree. We can move this.
Well,
Sooner or later, that entity has to say whether or not they're interested in purchasing that. And either do it or we move on because we have a need. So grandpa and grandma don't have to, so they don't have to walk up that hill from a half a mile away, almost a quarter mile away. We need to do something and they need to make a decision whether or not they're gonna move forward or we need to move on.
I agree.
Can I ask how long they've been driving?
Over a year.
Yeah.
Okay, so plenty of thinking.
I agree with Eric Nix on this one, that they've had their time. We move on.
Well, at this point, you said it's, does it never happen, right? I mean, there's no more.
yeah, we had a signed purchase agreement. There was deadlines associated with that, and there was some contingencies within that purchase agreement that they had approvals from the city. And they weren't able to get those approvals from the city because part of that is they needed to show the city how they're gonna hook up to water and sewer. And of course, their solution was to get an easement across our property. We were negotiating what that might be. We weren't able to come up with any kind of resolution. And it just is sitting there as if, yeah, nothing has happened. Because there still may be a chance that something may happen, we were uncomfortable saying where we would put that parking lot. And then where we would then cut the road in. Because we would have to build a road or in to get to the parking lot. And that's where if the development were to come to fruition, that road would be created by the developer. Where then you just turn right into our parking lot. So if we choose to put the parking lot in, we need to build a road in. Or cut a road in or whatever. And then, you know, which way we position that parking lot in there. I work for the board. Board wants us to move forward with those unknowns. We could do that.
we don't have anything in that area for curriculum.
If they agree, if we were to magically come up with some sort of deal with this developer tomorrow, it's still gonna be a year and a half to 2 years before this thing even gets rolling and like something happens. That's a year and a half to 2 more years of baseball seasons and soccer seasons and whatever those fields are used for that we're not like listening to our citizens and our constituents, right? That's what I was just told a little bit earlier that we're not doing. And they want a parking lot there. So maybe we just say heck with it and move forward and go with the parking lot. I don't know. I don't know what the right thing to do is. But this development, if it does happen, it's not gonna happen for a while.
Is there an advantage financially to do all three at the same time in terms of having?
Yeah, well, you would always think that you would get more of a competitive bid if you have more projects.
Yeah, you get a friendlier number because you're going to have to mobilize manpower and equipment a second time.
Well, and the other thing is just the amount of material rates that are going up for this coming season. We wait another year, I mean, they're going up 10-15% for this coming season. We keep putting that off, we're costing ourselves how much money for a what if.
Yeah, well, so the intent was to put the middle school and the student services on one bid. The high school was always going to be a separate bid. When we talked, what was it, a week and a half ago. That's why tonight we have a call for bid with the student services with the high school because of the conversation that Ben just went through. So at this point, and the middle school lot is not designed yet. It's got to be designed before we can go out for bid. So it will go out as a separate call for bid because we're ready to move forward with the high school.
Would that go out as an alternate then? Or not?
The student services will on the high school bid.
Well, that's right.
Well, if we did want to move aggressively on this, I feel like we'd have to probably work with the city. Because remember, though, we're talking, this is the road, that on one side of the road, it's our property, which is city property. The other side of the road is township. But on the side of the road where we would need to cut in is city. Now, I don't know the requirements coming off of a city road to kind of open that up to turn, to put another road going in the other direction. You know, you follow me there? Like, what are the steps? If we would need to get approval from a planning commission or some other entity to be able to do that. So then we would have to get the city, get moving quick.
Yeah, ICS and Wolf would walk us through that process. They do that. But yes, there would be some work that we need to determine, you know, how that road is coming in there.
Give me direction. We'll just
I
block
think
out.
we move forward with the parking lot.
Yeah, I think so. To see if we can at least design it, see what it would look like.
It's 40 acres, right? What else could we use with 40 acres? That's the same. All right.
Yeah, I'm talking. It's actually more than, 40 acres, but it's when you're talking about the slopes towards the Rum River and things, then, you're talking about usable land and non-usable land, to do anything with.
I guess I agree that even if the developer, maybe that would hurt the developer a little bit to get whatever, or maybe they could care less, I don't know. If they were to lose a little piece of land there as we put in our own things there, so I guess I agree that that's probably not gonna happen anytime soon, and we should look at that.
Another thing too is, Ben, you've spent a lot of time on this working with the developer and that. And I think as a district, we have some other needs that, you know, we gotta have you, you know, you've given more than enough time for that project. And we can't keep asking you to take away time from something else. We have to be looking at what we need. And I think down the road, we could find use for some of that land. I mean, you talk about the wildlife and some of that. Well, what better classrooms can we give our kids for science in some of those areas? You know, I think there's some long-range vision that we should be looking at as well, and to give them an easement, we can't lock ourselves in at the middle school.
Okay, so. Is there any other comments or should they? go?
I'm hearing from the board that you want this ball field parking lot.
Stop wasting your time with the developer.
Okay, I'm just for full disclosure, there's a potential 3 years down the road, we sell that to a developer and that road that we're putting in there might get dug up. I don't know. I don't know none of us have a crystal ball.
Well, that's fine, and then whoever digs it up can replace it when they're done.
There you go.
Problem solved.
That'd be a great long-term.
We just increased the value of the land.
And
And then
again,
I'll set up a table in the parking lot and say, I'm a board member, come ask me a question. That's
Don't forget flyers.
public engagement. Goals.
so I'm just, Scott, as long as we're having such good discussion and people are playing the devil's advocate tonight, I just want to throw out there that having 80 lots with single family homes would sure be a good thing for our community and the school district, as we are in the business of educating people. And we're talking budget and we're talking enrollment. And tell you what, I feel like Princeton is an area that people want to live, but for people to live here, there needs to be reasonable housing accommodations for them to move here.
You know, and I think, Ben, that's a double-edged sword that you just said. We're maxing out on some of our buildings. I've heard that about primary for how long? Our numbers, you go out to Baldwin, Blue Hill, there's development going on. The number of permits. You put in this other housing, how are we gonna support them? Yes, we're gonna get money in, but if we don't have the space, how can we give them the quality education for every student we see the best? We gotta have our facilities and some of them needs taken care of as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have enough space for some more students, but you're right. We will tap out at a certain point. We'll need to have more space. So.
Okay. Do you feel like you have direction here or?
Guess we're working on a parking lot tomorrow, Michelle.
Yes, we are calling John.
Clear the calendar.
I think
Princeton
maybe
doing.
also a phone call to developers and tell them. We're online, right? We're live. Either or. Make a decision on what you want to do, or let's get back together and try to negotiate this out. I know that the easement. Across the parking lot is the main issue. Otherwise, it's gonna cost them about, what, $1 million more to go all the way up.
That's what I've been told.
I don't think there's any reason why we can't sit down with them again and try and hash this out and get it done. And if they hem and haw, then, I mean, I know a parking lot is not the greatest need, but it is a need. I mean,
I don't know if sitting with them again and hashing it out is the right, we've done that, right? I mean, we had a meeting with them and I don't know.
well,
They've been over.
but we now have another bargaining chip that we can go at.
We have a timeline. on that?
Well. Yeah, there is no timeline because that's already been passed, but, I think ultimately. Has the board's idea what the best use of that land changed from 2 years ago when we decided that would be a good idea to sell that.
I don't think that has changed, not for me. I think that the best use of that land is to have houses there. But that doesn't mean that a parking lot can't share.
Yeah, I know. And I just thinking out loud here, I think that if we were to open that up to another just open it up, hey, open land for bid, come give us your best offer. Whoever the developer is still will need to hook into city water and sewer. And they're gonna be asking to come across our property probably. Or go the other direction, right, which is,
Well, the other thing that we have not done is, we have not put it up for sale, advertised it. You've only worked with one developer. You haven't put it out there for other people.
and that's fine, let's put it out there for other people, but wherever it is, they're gonna need an easement to get to city water and sewer.
Brian, had your,
I'm gonna speak as a former PYSBA president and field coordinator. For 4 or 5 years I served in that role. We never scheduled a game on that upper quadplex. We only scheduled practices. We use Mark Park and we use fields 1, 2, 3, the lower ones for all our games. As far as community ed, we will be offering a number of different programs. We're hoping to bring back Sandlot, T-ball. We will be using only the lower 3 fields. So before we get going too much with the parking lot, and I heard the same thing for many years, about, bathrooms and parking lot up there. My only question is, I don't know if we have that many grandmas and grandpas walking up to those fields anymore, because, and I can check with Nick Spain tomorrow, because he's in that role. I don't think PYSBA, and I don't think a lot of games are happening up there anymore. I think it's practices only. And so I just want to throw that out there, because I served in that role for many years, and we did use it for games because of the little bar wall.
That was my question. Was it not used because of the
It
inconvenience?
was, I mean, and if you do add a parking lot, it would probably open up to more tournaments, because we do have a quadplex up there, but then we'd have to look at. We have a porta potty or 2, we'd have to look at restrooms and stuff when you start having tournaments. And I know the city, it works well with PYSBA and the district to offer things at Mark Park. The city did move stands over for our softball teams and stuff, and so we have the bleachers at the Mark Park now, so it's a better complex there. But it could be a revenue maker up there eventually if we did some stuff.
Doing it now. What could we possibly put up there? Instead of making a decision of doing a parking lot.
I don't think the parking lot isn't gonna impact the major property. I don't have the plans in front of me, but there's just any parking lot that we put in is not gonna impact, I believe, the future sale of that property or doing any big project on that property. Other than, I don't know about that driveway or road, whatever we wanna call it, to get to the parking lot.
I'm sorry, Michelle, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, he's right. It's the road coming in and how they come off of the main road to get back in there. And if they're gonna run a different road in there, how is our road going to play with it?
You're talking 82nd,
Mhm.
up at 82nd.
Yeah, well, I don't know the road numbers.
Okay, well, if you're on the long range planning committee, look for a possible invite to Wold and ICS and us to talk about that parking lot and let them know that, boy, we wanna move forward. We're not gonna pause. And we'll see what we come up with.
mean, they had a preliminary design, so it's probably not a ton of work for them.
I think they like seeing like what the developer had planned, because I think they can position the parking lot in a lot of different directions. So.
Okay.
All right,
Let's move on to the action items. And we start with 12A with the parameters. I know finance today talked about these parameters, so I guess I'll look for some direction there. 12A is class size, and the document that we looked at increases class size for the elementary from the prior years.
so. Can I have some commentary or do, okay, so we talked quite a bit at finance about this. And as we're going through our preliminary finance numbers and budget numbers that we'll be sharing with you at our next board meeting, we need the board to be prepared with the fact that it's gonna be a tough budget season for us, even with what we're hearing for some possible increases from the state. Inflation has hit us hard. The federal COVID dollars that we've used the last 3 years to continue to keep our class sizes where they have been is disappearing. And as we plan for wage increases and those kinds of things, we are anticipating a significant amount of dollars that we will need to cut in terms of expenditures to even come close to balancing the budget. And Michelle will share those things with you at the next meeting. Now, we're in a position where we need to start considering our class size parameters. And that's why there is some rationale to increase the high end by 1. As we were discussing in finance, we realized that this is a huge thing, because we prided ourselves on having realistic, respectable class sizes, comparably speaking to other school districts across the state in central Minnesota, and I feel like we've done a great job with that. The board needs to know that either we're gonna have to make an increase with that class size parameter this year, and if we don't do it, I think that it's inevitable that next year we would have to raise it by 1. Okay. Now, my recommendation is, and I don't know that we all agreed with this at finance, so other people can share their thoughts as well, but my recommendation is that we hold with what we had for parameters, what we've had the last probably 10 years, and not change those. However, we will not be able to afford to not be on the high end in all of those areas of our parameters. So with the idea that we need to prepare ourselves and our community and our team members, that for us to be able to continue to stay afloat financially, we will have to increase that class size parameter by 1. So my recommendation is, let's hold this year. It's gonna be tough, it's gonna be stormy, gonna go through like a budget tsunami. And we're gonna have to make cuts, but I think that we can do that within the parameters that we've had. But the idea that we're gonna have to raise those probably next year. The only exception of that would be is if the board chose to go out for an operating referendum at some point to bring additional revenue into the school district. Because there's a reason why 90% of the school districts in the state have an operating referendum. We're one of the 10 or 15% that don't. And, we've been able to weather this storm for so long, but eventually things are gonna catch up with us, and I think that we're getting close. So, other folks on the,
I agree with that. I think at the finance committee, we just kind of decided that we don't necessarily need to make this move quite yet. It is a very real possibility, and quite honestly, I feel like it's a real possibility. Could be more than one on the high end next year. I think that's just where we're at right now.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, and these are guidelines, so that's where I was thinking. I guess I was leaning more on the fence of, you know, if we were to raise it one, it is one. And it's just a guideline. And then it maybe set that expectation that we are gonna, you know, that there's gonna be cuts, maybe that would be help explain that, but I definitely would support putting it off another year, but for me, I'm thinking if it is just use the guidelines, what would that do in reality? Right? So that's where I was at.
Yeah, and even within those guidelines, you know, there will be some natural reductions that occur. But we won't, if we don't go to the high end of the parameters, and we're talking the difference between two students, generally speaking. You know, that's a difference for one or two teachers sometimes when you're looking at the parameters, so. It's gonna be tough, but I think we can do it. And I think the one thing that I shared with you that I get out and I listen to our teachers. And you know, I know class size is one of the highest priorities of importance for them. And it's been tough. It's been really tough the last couple of years. The student needs have gotten, from what I'm hearing, much more challenging. So I want to be able to honor that, but at the same time, you know, give time for our team members and our community to process that, you know, we're not going to be able to keep these class sizes much longer, and we're going to have to make some modifications to that. But if we made those changes now, I think that would be kind of out of the blue for them. And as we're just, I don't know that we've been able to fully communicate the challenges associated with the budget season. And that's intentional, right? I mean, we need to start looking at the numbers internally, and we need to advise the board on that. And then once we get direction from the board, then we will develop a communication plan to be out with our team members.
At the high school, do we not have some classes that are like 32, 35 right now? Or are they all under that 30?
No, there's guidelines, so, yeah, there are class sizes that will be over the guidelines sometimes, but there's some classes that are way under the guidelines. You know, and high school is the most challenging place to
Yes.
to do that, because, you know, you want to offer as many courses as you possibly can. And there's so many times you'll offer a course even with like 10 students in it, even though financially you have no business to do that, because you're losing, you know, you're losing a lot of money doing that. But at the same time, we feel like we have an obligation to provide a comprehensive curriculum and opportunity for our students. But, you know, on the flip side of that, what allows you to be able to do that is that you do have some classes where, geez, you know, we got to offer this class of 31, 32, 33. You know, and every course is different. Your bands and your choirs certainly going to have way more than that.
I think Jason was showing our average, our average is within these. I mean, we might have one class or so. I think we're, you know, doing our best to stay. Right. But I got
All right, any more discussion here? If we're going to keep them as they have been, we would need a motion to make that specific, unless someone is wanting to make the motion that is there.
I'll make a motion to keep the class sizes the way that they are currently for the next school year.
Use the words 22,
What is it?
23 class guidelines, the same for 23, 24.
I'll make a motion to keep the class sizes we have in 22-23 the same for 23-24 school year.
Motion made by Eric Strandberg. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Melissa. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We move on to the state percent, and I'm assuming finance has an idea here as well.
Yeah, we did talk about that and, that also was a fluctuating number. I don't know if we actually came with a,
Yeah,
was it? I'll let you say the number.
so I'm not gonna outright say the number, but I will tell you this, typically we use 2%. Right now, the governor in his proposal has 4%. The state or the House and the Senate are talking 5%. They are also talking tails. Remember, I talked about those tails, one of them being cross subsidies. So when Ben, Jason and I sat down and talked, we've been playing around with the 4% number because the tails, let's say they back off and we only get 3, but we get tails. So what they're talking about, 4% is really about half of what they're talking about. It's 50%. So the numbers we have been playing around with in our budget analysis has been the 4%.
Because the 4% does not include the tail.
Correct.
I'll pitch on eventually.
You know, the cross subsidy, they're talking, our cross subsidy here is over $2 million. So if we get 50% of that, that's $1 million. So our odds are good that we would bring in 50% of it, anything they're talking about there. We've got Democratic House, Democrats in the Senate. And in Minnesota, they only need a majority vote. So, no, they don't need 10 over or anything like that. So they don't have to convince the other side. Whether that's good or bad is not a discussion here, but it gives perspective on the session.
Our budget and our parameters are just our best guess as a starting point. I think we just always try and be as realistic as possible. And I think all the data that we are receiving and analyzing would suggest that 4% is a very reasonable number. I mean, the 4% is the lower proposal out of all of the proposals. So there's a strong chance that 4% could be a 5%. And we also know that cross subsidy is a huge thing being discussed. That we generally don't talk about all that other stuff in our parameters, but hey, we're gonna have to rely on some of that to help offset some of these budget reductions that I referred to. And we can just keep our fingers crossed and do a lot of lobbying at the Capitol.
Have you gotten a sense? Are they gonna wait towards the end of the session? Are they gonna try to do this?
It doesn't matter what they say, it will be the end. I mean, they can tell us that they're gonna try and get done earlier or whatever, I mean.
It's always been. So me.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna, that's the thing, this budget season, and Michelle shared with the finance committee that they're gonna have a really interesting budget season, because it's gonna be more complex than probably ever, and it's gonna be constantly revisiting that. As we get more information, we're gonna have to come back and change. So this is gonna be more of a fluid process that we will be needing to change probably weekly and just keep you updated.
So will this come back to us again then? Like this is the initial?
So we haven't actually had to change our parameters in prior years.
Oh, okay.
But that was because they were, I mean, most of the time they were talking between 1% and 2% kind of thing. This is a whole different ballgame. So we just mentioned the two big ones, the state percent that they give you on the formula and the cross subsidy. But there are multiple smaller bills out there that would also impact us financially. And I think they told us it would be 2 weeks yet. We got about 2 weeks or so when they give us the side-by-side comparisons of what's coming out of the Senate, what's coming out of the House, and what's coming out of the governor's mansion. And of course, we've heard the governor's piece quite a bit, the big stuff anyway. But there is a lot of what I call tails conversations, and there are bills just like crazy coming out of there. And I don't know if that's good or bad, it's just what's happening. So we are gonna have to keep a close eye on what's happening, because honestly, we need every revenue source we can get.
So how this will go is, we're gonna ask the board to vote on the parameters. They're soft parameters because they could change, like if we hear that, hey, they're going 5%, then I'm gonna ask the board, well, let us change that in our budget so we don't have to cut quite as much, because that's real. And that could be, and that's the same thing with student enrollment, as we're doing wild about kindergarten and we're seeing, boy, we think that our numbers are gonna be higher than what we projected, we're gonna add, but if they're gonna be lower, then we're gonna say, hey, we need to back off on that. So, I mean, we need a starting point to come up with kind of a goal, I hate to even say goal, but a target number that we need to get to as a starting point, and then we can either back off of that if things are better, or we need to add on to it. So if we are gonna be in a position where we're gonna have to decrease our expenditures, what I would anticipate is we'll come up with a process where we'll have like, okay, if we have to reduce $500,000, this is what would be in that first package. If we have to do $750,000, this would be what would be next. $1 million, this would be next. So we just start that planning process.
It sounds like 4% is not crazy. It just seems like so much percentage.
It does compared to if you look at
Like the
whole
history, yes.
Yes, but they are, no entity down there is talking less than 4% on the main formula.
So I'll make the motion to estimate the state increase of 4%. That's presented.
Okay, we have a motion on the table made by Chad. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Eric Strandberg. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Move on to enrollment. Any more? Got to plunk a number in there for enrollment.
So if you bring up the summary sheet, we did put some options to consider. If you go toward the bottom of the sheet, you can see where if everything tanked, we got a negative 114 students. Now, I won't say that never happens, because it has happened in my time frame here. But the likelihood of that is pretty low. I wouldn't put that. We also are showing that we could possibly be 45. Now, you got to realize this isn't taking into consideration that, like this year, K-8, we increased students, which was a very good thing, but the majority of that was move-ins. People moved into the community because they didn't come in K. They came in throughout the entire K-8 system. So people are moving around, so that's hard to judge. But if we put 45, if we add 45 students to the budget and we decrease 45, we're in trouble. So I put out there -40, -30, -20. What I've been using on my budget analysis internally as of right now has been -35. So.
So 3,180. Is what the number is.
435.
Yep. So I'm gonna make a motion that we use the number of 3,180 students to build our budget.
All right,
Second.
motion made by Eric Strandberg, a second by Chad. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. We will move on to the revised capital budget. I think we went through this the last time. It was fun.
Yes, and this one has not changed.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the revised capital budget for 2023 as presented?
So moved.
Motion made by Eric Strandberg. Is there a second? Second made by Chad. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we will vote by roll call, starting with Eric.
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Yes.
Chad, yes. Sue, yes. Eric?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Motion carries. We will move on then to the revised, long-term facility maintenance budget. And I'll entertain a motion, to accept the revised LTFM budget for 2023 as presented. Motion made by Chad. Is there a second? Second. Second by Don, and this is also roll call, and we'll start with Don.
Yes.
Yes.
Chad, yes. Sue, yes. Eric?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Yes.
Eric, yes. Motion carries. We then, need to move on to the, preliminary list for the 2023-24 bond options. Is Michelle, any more information here?
Yes, if you recall during the last meeting, Eric Mink said, why not 3 million? So I did have Ellers run a $3 million. And it's not as bad as I thought.
See, I told you.
It'd still be bringing, it would be under that 600,000 that I was. But it does kind of gain traction there, and we could operate, you know, with that funding. You just adjust down and we would have that money in Fund 6, so.
I think we get 3 million, get these projects taken care of.
Yeah.
Agree. Yeah, I agree.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the $3 million bonding option for the LTFM projects for 23-24 as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Eric Strandberg, seconded by Eric Minks. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We need to designate the attorney. I'm looking for a motion to accept the district administration recommendation of the firm of Grell, these PLSL for matters required to immigration law for 2023 as presented. So moved. Motion made by Don. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Melissa. Is there any further discussion?
Is this new or have we done this?
Yeah, we've done this before. We forgot to put it on the, on.
The January.
Organized. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. There are no additions to the agenda. Future meetings are listed there. I did want to add that the speed day at the Capitol is March 7th. And Emily, if you would put that on, for future meetings, we can talk about who would like to attend that. And, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Eric, seconded by Sue. All the Erics and Erics.